This is Tina Moore with Career Services.
And I'm Scott Ryan, former IT instructor.
And Special Assistant to Tina.
Special Assistant to Tina, yes.
That's what we're going with.
And what are we doing today?
We are talking about the IT resume starter document.
Beep.
Nice sound effects.
You're welcome. I'm multi-talented. Okay, so how did this come about? Because it's my understanding that all resumes are exactly alike.
They are not.
Okay, well that's good.
Nor should they be.
Nor should they be.
Right.
So, what are we going to talk about today? Kind of in summary.
We are talking about the IT starter document, why it's built the way it is, and how students should use it.
Okay, and is this available to students?
In the Canvas resource room.
Ooh. Okay.
It says IT resume starter document.
All right.
You can find it in the materials development section and also in the module for IT seminar. It's in both places. You can just go to documents and find it there too.
Good.
Yep.
I just noticed this was done in 2018. Is that the most recent update?
No, I just haven't changed the date. I know. It's fine.
Okay, so walk us through. What are we actually looking at right here?
This is the actual document. It is a Word document.
Can you scroll down all the way through it?
I will.
Okay.
Don't rush me.
Sorry.
So if you watched the video about the regular starter document, it's set up the same way. Contact information at the top. Cover letter is on the first page. Resume is the second page. Professional references, and then personal references. All in one document to keep it together and simple to start with. Develop them first and then modify as needed. But it's all here in one document.
Okay.
And there we go.
So why is the top gray?
Because that is in the header. You have to double click to get up there and change the information. And then you just double click back down here.
Okay, I see LinkedIn account. I don't have a LinkedIn account.
Get one. Step number 1.
Okay.
If you're really not going to do it, then you can just delete that line altogether. But really, everybody needs a LinkedIn account. IT majors really need a LinkedIn account.
I would agree with that. There are all kinds of assets, and that's part of the project. Your thing. What's the thing? I've forgotten what you call the thing. Portfolio.
LinkedIn portfolio.
Yeah, that's part of your portfolio. And you can embed projects and all kinds of things. And it actually allows, my job was, when we were hiring someone, was always to internet snoop them and figure out everything I could about them. And this allows me to do that, kind of to find out your background and what you do and see what you've done without actually having to snoop. So it is impressive, and it's easier for the people who are trying to find something about you when they can look there. And you also can say in an email, as you can see from the assets in my LinkedIn account, I can do X and Y and Z. So it's very, very useful. And it replaces a binder that we used to have.
Yes.
That you had to photocopy and mail to people. So it's just infinitely easier.
It is. And nowadays, most people have multiple social media accounts. Not Scott, but most of us do. Normal people do. And this is the professional online social media presence. And so when it's on your materials like this, it just sends them to your professional presence so that they may or may not then decide to go find you on Facebook or Instagram or wherever else you might be.
I do actually have a LinkedIn account.
I know you have LinkedIn.
That's it.
Right. That's my point.
Yeah.
You don't have Instagram and Facebook.
I don't want to.
Snapchat and a Pinterest and a Lemon8 is a new one.
Really? Wow. Mm-hmm. All of the social things.
A Visco.
Nope. Having none of that.
So when you type in your address, make sure you put the www at the front. Otherwise, it will not hyperlink. You hit the space bar at the end. It hyperlinks, and then we're just going to change the font color to black. The underline still shows that there's a hyperlink there, but it's without the blue to really pull somebody's eye So that's what you want to do. Same thing when you put your email address in, make sure it's hyperlinked and then take out the black, or make it black instead of blue.
And if you have a funky email address, just get a regular Gmail address or
Yes.
something like that.
Yes.
We've had IT majors tend to have creative email addresses that are embarrassing when you go to actually apply for a real grown-up job. So
Nobody needs to know what your favorite whatever was when you were in 8th grade and major
don't
email account.
try
So
not to do that. And FYI, if you have because a lot of people do that to make it unique, they will put their graduation year as a number in there, and that tells an employer, I can guess then, how old you are, which I can never legally ask you how old you are. So anything like that, usually you want to avoid. So even if that's your primary address, you can have another one that then forwards into your primary, and that can be your real grown-up one. Just
yes, you can
advice.
absolutely do that.
Because we've had people that I could tell how old they were
Oh, absolutely.
just by their email address.
Absolutely.
And we're not legally allowed to make judgment calls on age because we can't legally ask. But if you tell me how old you are,
Then
and
it's
I
fair
know
game.
that I know that you're 18, I'm probably going to judge you.
Every
Yeah.
area of age is judged in some way
Yep.
negatively. It can be judged negatively. So just avoid that. It's just a good idea to do that. So double click back down here in the body.
Change the date to something in this decade, and then move on. Yes.
Notice that it is spelled out though.
Oh, yes.
We're not doing 9/11/24. We're doing September 11, 2024.
Yeah.
Professional communication. So we're going to write professionally.
Okay.
This information is the information for the person you're sending it to.
Which I have seen where people put their own information there.
Yes, I also have seen that.
So don't do that.
Don't do that.
Yeah. And a lot of times we get to whom it may concern.
Do not do that. Hopefully saying it 3 times makes it clear that you shouldn't do that.
But what does that tell someone?
That apparently your time traveling back to 1972.
Oh, I
For
just thought
starters.
I just thought that you were
And-
lazy enough that you didn't do any
And-
research to figure out
and
who was
that
going to.
you're lazy enough that
Yeah.
you didn't do any research. So yeah, to whom it may concern went out a long time ago.
But it still pops up because it's easier. I don't know. Now, could I do Dear Hiring Committee?
You could.
Okay.
Director of
Human Resources.
hiring manager, something like that. In the event that you really can't figure out who's hiring, and that does happen. There are companies who hide that kind of information. They don't want you to know who's in their HR department. They don't want you to, they make it really hard to find out who people are. If you really can't find it out, then yeah, something like Dear Hiring Manager
Okay.
would be appropriate. Don't say Director of Human Resources if they're not big enough to have a Human Resources department. So do a little research, figure it out. This is Dear Mr. or Ms. Smith. Notice the Ms. A woman's marital status has 0 to do with her professional status. And if it is somebody who uses they, them pronouns, then it is MX period and their last name.
Did not know that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So
I would go to hiring manager at that point.
Well, here.
I mean, when in doubt,
maybe.
use their title.
Right. However, oftentimes my general recommendation is go to LinkedIn and see if you can find them. And if they have they, them pronouns, then you know to use MX.
Okay. Good enough.
So a lot of people on LinkedIn now, I have it on my profile, I have my pronouns on there. So that is a very common thing nowadays on LinkedIn, is for people to include that information. So real quick, first sentence / paragraph is the position that you're applying for. Keep it simple.
Duh.
Last paragraph, thank you for your time. I look forward to speaking with you. Please contact me at, put your phone number and your email address in these places. Those words come out.
One thing that I always did, and we'll see how Tina likes this idea, one thing that I always did, and I suggest, is I look forward to speaking to you. I will contact your office the week of, because if, I'm going to think, and I've had people just anguish, almost in tears, should I call? If I call, am I being pushy? Am I going to be eliminated from the pool because I called? But if I don't, wait, are they waiting for me to call? And if I don't call, am I eliminated from the pool because I didn't call? And people just break down because of that. And if you say, I'm going to contact you the week of whatever, and then you do, you can just say, is Mr. Smith in? No, he's not. Okay, I had applied for the network administrator position, and I said I would check in this week just to see how things were going, and that's what I'm doing. Do you have any news on and no, nothing that we can tell you now. Okay, thank you very much. I said I was going to call. I called. And maybe they'll be like, oh, yeah, we meant to call you. Can you come in tomorrow? That opens up an opportunity, but at least it gives you the peace of mind to know that you can. Now, if you say you're going to, and
then you better do it.
And you don't.
Right.
Yeah, then you've kind of closed the door. But
yeah, you can absolutely do that. I have no problems with that. With the caveats of, if you say you're going to do it,
you better follow through.
You better do it.
Yeah.
And when you do it, you better handle it well. Like how you outline the conversation is great. I had somebody call me once. Actually, I think it was one of your students because I think I called you afterwards. Yeah. And they had applied for a position in my office and said, I just want to let you know that I have applied for the position. And I said, great. I look forward to reading all of the materials when I get them. And they went on for 9.5 minutes, no kidding, because I was looking at the clock, explained to me all of the positions that they had applied for at Lakeland and how unfair it was that they had not received an interview yet, and just went on and on and on complaining about things and complaining about Lakeland. And what they didn't realize is that was their interview. Yeah. And so at that point, they were not going to be considered for the position. So if you're going to call, then what Scott said about just calling to check in. Yeah. Are there any updates on the position? Just
you have
to make
know,
sure you received my information.
You have to know that even if I know that we're choosing another person, I can't tell you that.
Right.
No one is. We're going to wait for HR to close out, make the offer. They've accepted the offer. Yes. Now we're going to contact everybody and say thank you very much. We've gone with another candidate. So you're not calling expecting information because you're probably never going to get it because legally most places will never. They'll be able to yes, we can confirm you have applied for that position. And that's it. But you can ask for a timetable. Is there a timetable? Will you know by the end of the month? Oh, yes, we should know by the end of the month. Great.
Yes.
I will wait for your call. Thank you very
exactly.
much. Yeah. And if you're gracious and you don't eat up a lot of time, that's a good thing.
Then it can be very positive.
You've made a good contact, that now they don't dread. Like if it's the 9.5 minute guy, I don't want to call that guy back and tell him that he didn't get it. That's going to be an email.
Yes, absolutely.
Zero chance I'm going to call that person back.
Absolutely. Yeah, I had another person at one point who wanted to apply for something in my office and harassed me to the point that I actually had to talk to HR about it. And we had to put the kibosh on because they were coming by the department and wanting to know things every single day, harassing all of us. So don't be that person. But if you're going to put in here that you are going to call and check in.
That's what I do to you, though.
Absolutely. Well, fair. I might have to go to HR about you, too.
This might be
anybody who doesn't know us.
This might be the last video that I appear in.
I love it.
Yeah.
Second paragraph. This is the part where you need to demonstrate that you actually have the ability to communicate in writing. It should be a fully developed and fleshed out paragraph, not just a collection of sentences. And it needs to be grammatically correct and have proper punctuation.
Grammarly
is a good tool.
Yep. Send it through Write it all. Send it through Grammarly. It'll make some suggestions.
Absolutely.
That is a good, unless you have somebody who's an editor who can do that for you. That's a nice thing that you can do. That second paragraph is, and sometimes I've had second, third, fourth paragraph, depending upon, as you can see from my resume, because we back up a little bit, I'm going to look at your resume.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to look at your cover letter first. I'm looking at your resume.
Screens you in or out.
And
On
then
the first
when I get a
pass.
pile of 4, 5, 6 resumes, now I'm going to look at the cover letter.
Right.
So this is, I've already looked, I've given you a first glance. You've made it into the not terrible pile. So this is the point where you can go through and you can say, as you can see from my resume, I have experience doing this. And if you can give me something like you actually read what I wrote in the job requirement, and you bring something, so I can tell from this you read that, or you looked at the Lakeland website. Number one, if you're going to apply for Lakeland College, spell it right, 3 words, Lakeland College.
Yep.
If you don't, and we just had somebody who applied and Lakeland was 1 word, and that, like, right off the bat, like, you didn't pay attention enough to know how to spell
Yes.
the company that you're applying for,
Yes.
you kind of nuked yourself there. So be careful on that. But you can, the more you can bring and you can show me that you've researched this and you know the company. So this can be like, oh, we really need to, I can do X, I can do Y, I can do Z. But if you can work some of that in, I know that your company does, it's important to do whatever, and I have a background doing that, and you can elaborate. This is your sales pitch, really. I mean, you have a half page really to sell yourself. And then the resume is the factual basis, so you can continue to say, as you can see from my resume, I can blah, 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 blah.
Yes.
That's my pitch for cover letter.
Absolutely. And to kind of agree with you, that's weird, and to add on to it.
We usually, for those of you who are watching, we usually don't agree on much of anything, especially when it comes to this.
That's not really true, actually.
I mean, in the big picture, we agree, but in the minutia, there's a lot of things that you like that I don't, and that'll pop up here in a minute.
Yeah.
It's mostly on resume, but
right. This is the thing about the cover letter, is to make the switch from here's what I've done to here's what I will do at this company or organization.
Here's how I can be a benefit to
Yes.
you. I can be a member of your team and do these things.
Yes. And contribute to your mission, your vision, your values, your work in these ways.
Which we don't see that very often.
Right.
I did X, I did Y, I did Z. Hire me.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's not a good approach.
And usually, in my experience, this was written at 10:30 the night before when it was due by midnight. And that's when people started. So it's all written in like a 1 hour block, and you're worried about getting the layout, but you're not really worried about the content. I mean, if the resume is terrible, they're never going to get to this point. But if your resume and your experience are good, this is your first interview right here.
Absolutely. And I can't tell you how many resumes I have read over the years where one of the first bullet points says exceptional written communication skills, and then I read the cover letter and I go back to the resume and highlight that bullet point and say, no, you do not, because
But again,
it
was 10:30 at night before it was due, and I might have been drinking.
there might have been some of that, I guess. But yeah, definitely don't make claims you can't back up. And the cover letter, in addition to all the things that we've already said, really is your writing sample. It proves to them that you can write a professional email, that you can write a report that needs to be done and turn it in and not embarrass your boss. So,
Which again is a Grammarly thing. I mean, that makes that more
absolutely,
important.
Absolutely.
Have someone or something look at it.
Always. Sign it off respectfully. You're going to put your name here. You're going to type it here. Now, in between, back in the day, because I'm old, we would actually sign.
I let that one just lie.
You're older than me, so you have to let it lie. That's true. We would actually sign our name here with pen. And clearly we're not doing that nowadays because we're going to upload this as a PDF to wherever it is we're applying to. So what I recommend
Go ahead.
is creating an electronic signature,
Okay.
which you can do in career services. I know.
What does that cost?
Nothing.
Holy cow. And what would
Right?
that look like?
We will email it to you as a JPEG, and you just plug it in here.
But it's your actual signature.
Your actual signature. Okay. We have a Surface Pro in the office, and you come in and use the little stylus, and you sign it right there, and then Janine will crop it out and email it to you, and you just save it to your computer and plug it in there as a picture, size it appropriately, and you're on your way. And you have it forever. I'm using the same electronic signature that I created in 2004.
So mine is older. No, probably not older than that, but I just signed my name large on a piece of paper and took a photo of it and then cropped it.
You can do that.
I mean, it's the same thing. So it's, I mean, there's nothing.
Mine was on a flatbed scanner.
There's nothing magical about it. I mean, I took a high-res photo of it, so it looks good and it doesn't have shadows on it. But it's just, you just want your signature on white that you can drop in.
Yes.
So however you can get that. But if you go see Tina in Career Services, she can absolutely set you up with the digital
You can make
signature.
an appointment in Navigate to just stop by the office. It takes less than 15 minutes to get it done.
Okay, good.
It's perfect. Okay, we're going to skip the resume for just a second, talk about references because it's quick. What was that?
Is it? This is one of the things we don't agree on. Go ahead.
What do we not agree on?
Because professional references, yes. Personal references, I don't recommend.
I think you should have them ready, but you don't ever send them unless they are specifically requested. And I have seen places that request them.
Okay. All right.
So
Fair enough.
What I don't want is for people to be caught off guard and not have all of the resources and information that they need at their fingertips when they're doing it at 10:30 when it's due at midnight.
Right.
So if you just do it and get it ready.
My thought is just a functional, like, your professional references are already cherry picked, so you're only going to pick the good ones. Your personal references are people who actually are friends with you, and you're not going to put them on this list if they're going to say anything. I mean, you walk on water. What's the point of talking to these people? They all love you. I mean, you could be a serial killer, and your personal references are going to say, "Well, he's a really neat guy," and he puts all the bodies. He puts all the bodies in a really neat pile. That doesn't help me.
Right. One, especially as you move through your career and your life, pick personal references who are people that you've volunteered with, that you've been on a board with, that you've done some things with, that are not just your friends.
I just don't see the value in the hiring process of looking at personal references.
You can say the same thing about professional references.
You could, but at least professional references, you had some type of job affiliation with.
Well, that's why
it's not like it's your neighbor or your grandma.
That's why when you do personal references, I recommend things like board members and people that you've served with in some capacity because they can talk about those things. They have more information to go on.
Yeah, but if I'm a college student, I don't have those people.
There are people, right? But
I'm going to get drinking buddies.
Places,
and
so, but also keep in mind that if those are the people you pick as your personal references and an employer does call them, think about the things that your friends would actually say. There it is.
I mean,
so you
my
should
friends
be careful.
are your friends. Because my friends would not be kind. Your friends would be much kinder.
Probably. So it's
I just don't see the point in it.
The only reason there's a point in it is because there are some employers who ask for them.
Okay. Now, should you include instructors? I say yes. Especially program coordinators.
For professional references?
Yes.
Absolutely.
And I will get people that will call me and say, "Hey,
yes,
we have one of your students and you're not on the reference list.
Yes.
Why not?" And I will say, "Guess why?" And they're like, "Oh, okay."
Absolutely.
Enough said.
Yep.
But I've also had people that wanted to use me as a reference, and I asked the question, "Do we think that's a good idea?" And they say, "That's why I'm asking you." And I say, "Okay, if you're willing to put me on, I will be your reference." Those don't end well.
Right, not usually.
Yeah.
I will point out again also that you need to have an email address for all references, including personal, even though it doesn't actually say that. But you need to have an email address for all references that you send to them because a lot of companies are checking references by email now. Lakeland does.
Really?
Yes. I don't like it as a hiring manager because there's a whole lot that you learn from talking to somebody, not only by what they say, but what they don't say.
Yeah.
And so I don't really like it, but
It's less scripted. Yeah.
Yeah. And so
I would say I get 4 or 5 calls for every email reference.
and a lot of that is because you have a personal relationship with the people who are hiring, and so they know you and they'll call.
That's true.
But at Lakeland, and I know a lot of other places, they only check references by email. So they will email somebody.
But if and you should, the people on this list, they should know you're going to use them.
Yes.
So get a business card, because a business card gives you all that. Or an email, someone will email me, I'll email back with my signature, and my signature has, well, except for email, and you just emailed me, so you're going to have that. But all of that information will be there. But just make sure, hey, can I use you as a reference? Which, as an educator, absolutely. I expect that. Mm-hmm. But it's nice to know that it's coming, because I've had people from graduated 5 years ago. I haven't talked to them since they graduated, and I get a reference call on them, and I have to say, can you just have you interviewed them? Can you describe them? Because I don't know who you're talking about. Do you have the resume there? Because I mean, the name rings a bell, but that was a long time ago, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, he worked here and worked here." Okay, now I know who we're talking about. This was so they didn't warn you? No, I had no warning whatsoever that this was coming.
And also, if you've been in your field for 5 years, then your faculty member from college might not be your best option. So there's kind of an expiration date on who you should be using as a professional reference too. So it's not hard set, but you kind of need to keep that in mind.
Right.
Probably somebody else who can better speak to your skills now than the person who taught you 5 years ago. So, yeah, professional references. And also ask people...
You said this was going to be quick.
I know. Well, it's your fault.
Okay.
Blah, blah, blah. Professional references. Also ask people what phone number and what email address they want you to include. So maybe Scott wants his Lakeland phone number and email address listed, but we'll say somebody else here, John Liebold, would prefer that you used his personal cell phone and his Lakeland email address. So whatever that person chooses is what you want to use.
I typically will just hand him a business card. So
and that's
whatever.
Fine. Now
it's a professional reference, so it should be a professional contact.
It is.
And if you call me on my personal cell, I'm just going to screen that call out. So,
well, right. Except that, especially when it's an educator, sure, you always worked and were available, but we interviewed somebody once for a position here, and they had 9 references, which is too many. 3 to 5 is appropriate. They had 9, 8 of which were out on summer break and could not be reached during the time that we were trying to hire.
Maybe that's why they had 9.
Stinks to be them.
Yep.
So we're not moving forward with a candidate that we can't check references on. So that's important. Okay. Are you done complaining about references?
I'm ready to complain about resumes.
Perfect. Okay, the resume. This is specially designed for IT majors, based on the work that Scott and I have done together for a lot of years.
Too many.
A lot.
Yep.
And then you went off and retired and came back.
Yep. Okay, so if you go up, let's just start with a big complaint. So, objective.
Right.
I think it's a waste of space, because my objective is always going to be to get whatever job I'm applying for. Because if you say I want to get a different job, that's a red flag. Why are you applying for this job if you want that? If your objective is that,
we have screened people out on that,
right? it's almost always going to be the position that you're applying for. So to me, that's a given, and it's a waste of 2 lines that I could use to put something else in. Now, if your resume is a wasteland and there's barely anything in it, it eats up 2 lines. So I guess in that it has value. But when you get to a mature status on your resume, there are location. You've eaten up the top position with something that is of little or no value. And this is something that we tell everybody. What's the amount of time that my eyeballs see your resume? How long?
On a first pass?
Yep.
Probably less than 6 seconds.
So 3 of those have been reading your objective, which...
Wow, you're a slow reader.
Shut up. Which is... She's mean to me, really. But, I mean, you've wasted however much of that, 1 second, then fine. You've wasted 1/6 of the total time you're going to look at my resume to look at something that has no value. I would much rather you see my education and my experience, and those be the important things, rather than something that does not move the ball down the field. So,
yeah, there's a lot of people who feel like you. There is.
Tina does not.
For me, it's not a sticking point. It's not a hill that I'm willing to die on. At the same time, there are positions people that we have passed over because they couldn't be bothered to change the objective on their resume when they applied for a position in our office.
Which is another reason to not even have it on there.
However, if you're applying somewhere that has multiple open positions, it's also nice as a hiring manager to know that you're actually applying for this position, because I'm not reading your cover letter until I've already screened you in from your resume. So I don't know what position you're applying for.
But that's just lazy, because HR should have already had you in the right pile.
Oh, because people never make mistakes.
You're really arguing this objective. Anyway,
I don't.
She wants it in. I don't care. If you put it in, that's great. But
most
if you have
people who are early in their career also are not worried about 2 lines.
Right.
So,
which is fine. And as I
that
said,
might shift
as
over
it
time.
matures and you get more information,
Right.
more content,
right, it might shift over time. Yep.
we'll just go with that.
Absolutely.
Eventually, it will drop off of your resume when your resume gets good enough.
There you go. Okay, education and certification. Going back to, look, I've provided the answer. It's Lakeland College in 3 words. Do not change it.
I've had people change it.
25% of the students that I work with
they will wipe that out and redo that line and then type it in incorrectly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
It's 3 words, not 2, not 4. 3. We've had every variation.
I had Lakeland University once.
Oh.
I know.
That's an upgrade.
That was...
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Just when I thought I'd seen all of the variations, that one came through. That was interesting. Okay. Mattoon, Illinois stays there. Degree and program of study. So this is the degree you are earning and your program of study. Now, one of the things that we have for IT majors is this little starter document with notations.
That is still really small on the screen.
All right, I'm going to make it bigger.
We're staring at a gigantic television right now.
Right.
So it looks bigger on our screen than it will on your screen.
There, that should be better. So on this notated version, it talks about, so the degree is certificate or associate in applied science. Notice that I've given you the answer there too. It's not an associate's. It's not an associate's in computer applications. It's an associate in applied science.
We had of there a lot too.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Which actually makes sense. You would think it is of, but it's in.
It's in.
Yep.
And then your program of study is your major. So make sure that you know what degree you are earning and what your major is. You can find that in Navigate, in your hub. You can go onto Lakeland's website, and there's a list of things. So if you're unclear about how to list that, then ask. Okay, that's the best thing to do. But we've tried to put all of the options in here to make it easier.
I have another complaint.
Of course you do.
So that same line, when it says expected, I'm not crazy about expected. Now, I'm not going to veto it, but if you have expected May of 25, why not just say May of 25? Expected means if I don't flunk out or drop,
Well,
quit.
That's why I don't like the words like anticipated, or there's some real fluff words.
Right, but is expected any better than that? I mean,
This
why?
is this right here is a hotly contested
Yes.
thing in this world of employment documents and career services and yada yada.
And, am I right?
It's split. It is split. And
It's not terrible.
Right.
It's not terrible. But my thing, again, it eats up space and it doesn't bring a lot of value. And it kind of implies that I'm not really confident. Like,
Now, see, to me, as
I've
the
seen
reader-
maybe.
as-
Maybe is way worse.
Oh my God.
Maybe May of 25. I don't know. I haven't really looked at the schedule. But to me, expected is kind of a lighter version of that. Just cut it out. Just say May of 25.
The other thought process, though, is that it can look as though you're trying to hide the fact that you're not graduated yet. I understand that the date is on there, but because you haven't been clear with the expected, that you're just kind of trying to hope that they miss it.
Oh. So the expected to you is pointing out that you're
Yes.
not done yet.
Yes.
Okay. I can see there's value in that.
Yep.
I
That's
still
it.
disagree with it,
Right.
but I see your point.
Now, I will say, and it says it here, the expected stays on there until you graduate. Just do it for this assignment,
Okay.
and then you can do whatever you want. I'm going to tell you what I think you should do, and then the reality is you're going to go do what you want, and you get to do that, and that's just how it works.
We did this for years
So-
and years and years, and I would say one thing, and Tina would say the other, and I would tell the class, your correct answer is somewhere in between.
Yep.
And it depends. You like that, you don't like that. You agree with Tina, you agree with Scott. It's fine, because this is all opinion based. And
Some of it is.
Well, but I mean, you can be like an absolutist and say this is exactly how, and you apply, and the person receiving it doesn't obey those rules.
Right.
So, I mean,
So with like these types of things that we're debating here, no big deal.
yeah,
However, there are some things that are hard and fast, like that I consider hard and fast rules, which is why I provide the document with the structure.
such as
It needs to be clean. It needs to be concise. It needs to be in alignment. So
Okay.
you'll notice everything is left aligned. All the bullet points are in a straight line. This information over here is tabbed so that it lines up well.
See, I like
It
right
needs-
justified myself, but as long as you're consistent,
As long as you're
pick
consistent.
a lane and stay in the lane.
And I
Yeah.
used to do the right justified, but that requires people to know how to do a left and right.
But see, to me,
Alignment.
when you can do that, that actually shows I can do stuff in Word, and I can make this do
Right.
that.
Right. So if you want
guess
to
if-
do that, that's fine.
I guess if you can't, don't. Yeah.
But most people can't and don't need to know, and so
But
it's more trouble
But
than
we are-
it's more trouble than it's worth
we
to
are
me,
geeks.
Scott.
We are geeks. We want to make this.
It's more trouble
Whatever.
than it's worth,
It doesn't really matter
As long as it's clean.
As long as you pick one.
and it needs to be.
When it's all haphazard and hard to read, then I'm gonna die.
then the reader, the reader isn't going to bother, and so
Because I'm hiring you potentially to do stuff in the office, and if you're sloppy enough on this thing that
Yes.
was like life shattering potentially, how sloppy are you going to be on the stuff that you're doing for me?
Yes.
I mean that.
your employment documents are supposed to be your best work, your best effort in the process of
Wait.
of applying for a job.
Will you look these over and make sure that they're not embarrassing?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's what we're here for. But these documents are your professional image. And so, yeah, exactly what you're saying. If the grammar is terrible, then I can't trust you to write a professional email. If the resume is a mess, then I can't trust you to be able to put something together in a logical and sensical way that other people are going to understand.
Yeah, the other way is not necessarily, if you give me good stuff, I'm not, it's not like you're cleared to do anything, but you will toast yourself pretty quickly.
Absolutely.
By turning in. We had one for a full-time position that had whiteout on it.
I had one that was marked out with an ink pen and written in.
Today everything's electronic, so you wouldn't get that. But I'm like, why would you do that and think that was okay?
Absolutely. It's a terrible idea.
I mean, that wasn't even a throwaway. That was like, holy crap, we're keeping that one off to the side just to show that I didn't make that up.
Yep, absolutely. I have a couple of those.
And they're IT students.
Yep, for the most part.
Yep.
Okay. There's another program that falls in there quite a bit too.
So bullet points. I'm not huge on bullet points.
GPA of 3.0 or above. If you have a really good GPA, I would put that as a bullet point.
And 3.0 is, that's fine. 3.6 and above, definitely. And a lot of times 3.6/4 to let them know that we're on a 4.0 scale. So that kind of tells you something. If you made a Dean's List or President's List, then those could go there.
You can also put those things in the same line to save some space, especially as your resume grows.
Stacking things on the line is actually good. The other thing for bullet points, and some of my students would do this, certification grade training leading toward X and Y and Z. I haven't gotten this certification yet, but I took certification grade training leading toward that, which means, and which has some value, and you can explain that in the cover letter, as you can see from my resume. I'm taking classes leading toward the Net Plus or Security Plus or whatever.
Right.
But that gives you, don't put class names.
No.
Class names tell...
It's irrelevant.
Right. Tell nothing. And I've had people just list out all the IT classes they've had. That actually does more damage than good.
Yes.
But if there's something specific that you've taken, you've had a C# class, and the job requires that, you could put that down, that you had 2 different classes, C#, including, and put the things, indexing and tables and whatnot, things that refer to that I know you understand what that is. That has some value, but that could also go in the cover letter. And there are a lot of things that are like, well, it could go here, it could go there. The problem is, I'm not going to get to the cover letter until I know this is good. So sometimes a condensed version here and then an explanation in the cover letter is good too.
Yes, and really what I heard you saying was that you need to be focusing on the skills that you have as a result of the class, not the class, and the skills go in your technical skills area.
Yes.
So really the point is focus on the skills.
Right. These would be the very specific things that I can do. The other was just to say that I have gone through the training to do that, because that's an expensive thing usually. When I bring you in, when I hire you, I have to send you out for training, and if you already have that training, you got a leg up on all the other people, and you just save me thousands of dollars potentially.
There you go. Yep. So that could be there. You can also just delete the extra bullet point, or both bullet points, if it's not relevant to you.
Actually, for those last 4 certifications, actually all of those certifications are now defunct.
All of these are?
Yep, all 4 of them.
Mm-hmm. Should I just delete that whole section, or you're going to replace it with something else?
Well, I mean, we have Security Plus, Net Plus, CCNA. I mean, there are a lot of them that are there, and we now have the Google IT certifications that would go in there.
Okay, so
I mean, they're,
use this as a placeholder for your additional certifications.
And if you don't have any, that's fine. Just don't put anything there. And then if you scroll up, you're toward the top. Usually up is toward the top, not education and certification. Just put education. Just delete the end certification part.
Yes.
And it's totally fine if you don't have any. Nobody's going to think less. But if you do, pack it all in that one section.
Yes. We don't need to be wasting space, to your point. I know this is... Yep.
My watch keeps telling me I need to get up and move around. We've been here 44 minutes. Holy cow.
Well, we're almost done.
I know.
As long as you let us finish. So, The next section on the resume is technical skills.
Yes.
This is all your technical skills.
Oh, you want me to talk now?
This is always the part
Yes.
that you were supposed to be in charge of.
Right.
But here's the deal. Don't sell yourself short. That is what I see from most students, including IT students, is underselling and undervaluing the skills that they have.
And the problem that we have, and this has come up twice in the last 2 days, we do things that we assume everybody,
Yes.
like this is common knowledge for the entire planet because we're in
Yep.
the bubble, but HR doesn't know that. And this used to, I don't know that they do that now, but the hospital, I think, used to use OCR. They would scan, and then as a hiring manager, I would have here are the 25 topics that I want to see on a resume, and HR would just scan and do a match. How many of those 25? And then they would
Yep.
take like the top 10. So if DHCP, DNS, and WINS, if those were 3 things on the list and I mentioned them, you're like, well, everybody who goes through the Net Plus is going to be good with those. But if they're not in there,
You don't get screened into the process.
so you kind of have to
Yes.
know, is somebody going to look? And the HR people have no idea what any of this is. And I've had conversations with HR people, and they're just like randomly going through letters
Yep.
because they don't know what any of those letters mean, or is this significant and that, like, tell me which of these is more important. And I'm like, well, they're all important, but they don't know any of that. So explicitly stating the things and
Yes.
not just we get familiar with, knowledgeable of, or terrible. Tell me specifically what you can do.
Yes.
And if you can write a bullet point that uses something in context. So the examples that I would use are programming, knowledgeable of C#. Grandma's knowledgeable of C#.
Right. I
But-
know it exists,
Yeah,
so
I
put
can
that.
build an XYZ application using this and this in C#. Tells me if those are specific things in there, index tables and database SQL integration, that tells me something, and I can infer then that you actually know what you're talking about.
Yes.
I'm looking through this list, and people are this is just acronym listing for a lot of people. And it's, these bullet points are actually that long. DHCP, DNS, WINS, HTTP. There's just, and
It's just a list. It's a list.
Right, programming languages, just a long list of things with no explanation of how, are you a beginner, are you an intermediate, are you advanced? So you need to talk about it in context so that I know you know what you're talking about. And if you
Yes.
can do that, now I can judge, are you an intermediate or a beginner or an advanced person? So if this doesn't match up with, you say you have 20 years experience doing something and you just acronym puke up onto this list, I'm going to screen you out.
Absolutely.
And you're screening yourself out, really.
Yes.
So, and this is the hard part. You have to think about, and these are categorized, but put together a list of all the things that you've done in class, outside of class, in a project, for pay, not for pay,
Exactly.
whatever.
It does not
on your
matter
own.
if you've been paid for it.
Just list,
Yes.
just write the whole list out, and then start like grouping them and organizing them. And then what's the most important things? Now I go back to that employment document and see what do they want, and now I start seeing what matchup we have. And now I'm extrapolating on that and making that more detailed to give someone this. And you're like, well, everybody knows that you would do it that way. No. That HR doesn't know. And if you can explain that in context so I know that you understand that, that goes a long way to getting you in the good list instead of in the list or in the never mind.
It also demonstrates that you can talk about something clearly, that you can explain what you know and what you do, which is huge because not everybody can explain those things.
And for us, it's usually 3 or 4 cycles before we get to that point where it's actually decent. I mean, the first one is almost always terrible.
Yeah.
And then I gut it and send it back, and then you get a second one, and then the third one, and finally the fourth one. Now everything's kind of fleshed out. We figured out what's important and what isn't.
Yes.
And we figured out how much detail there needs to be or can be, because that's usually the thing. Again, selling yourself short.
Yes.
People say, but everybody knows that. Everybody in our area, yes, should know that. But HR doesn't, and HR many times is doing the initial screening of this. Mm-hmm. And if they see something that's super technical and detailed that's above their head, point.
Absolutely.
Let's pass that on to the IS department, because this guy really sounds like he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the way it's making me think of just the two of us in creating this video, and I sat here and watched Scott get all the technology set up because I don't know how to do it. And then talking about, what'd you call it? Post-production. You know, like what system is used.
Magic that happens.
The magic that happens, right? I don't have access to the tools. I don't know how to use the tools. And so it's really important. And this is true for people in all kinds of industries. What you're saying is exactly right. Mm-hmm. Everybody thinks that what they do and what they know is just common knowledge to everybody, and it really isn't. Right. It just isn't. So, yeah, you have to tell people what you know. That's the only way to get the job, is to tell people what you know. So this is where your bullet points go. Now, they're chunked out like this just to make it easier on the reader, one, to see the different areas. And so those areas might be very different for you. Okay. Change them as you need to. Title them however.
3 to 5
per,
2 to 3 to 4 bullets. That might be a little heavy on 5 bullets, but
But really, they're chunked out because as a reader, and this is the stuff that I enjoy, he gets all this IT stuff. This is the stuff I enjoy. As readers, this helps me chunk out the information. And so I can more quickly move through it, and it doesn't become overwhelming.
And in that initial 6 seconds, I'm probably only reading technical skills and those chunks. I'm not going to read bullet points. I'm going to see there's a lot of body to those bullet points, and I'm going to know there's a lot there to read. But I'm just going to see that you have client and server, hardware, and networking. Yeah, they've got a good education. The rest of it wasn't embarrassing.
And the other thing about those bullet points is there's information in here. It's all in the Canvas resource room, and there's a whole video just on how to write bullet points. But you start with a skill verb. And so what they're going to see on that first 6-second pass is these major headings and then a skill. Build, develop, write, code.
Or past tense, developed, wrote.
Well, for this section, they should be in present tense because they are skills you currently have.
Okay.
So all in present tense for this section. But those are the skills. Analyze, communicate. So they're going to see these headings, those skill verbs, and then they're going to know that there's more support there that they're going to come back and read later. So that's what they're going to see in that first 6-second pass. That's why you build it that way. So and those should be taking up the bulk of your resume, your technical skills.
Yeah, I would say half, at least half.
Yeah.
Sometimes a little bit more, but usually at least half. And the most important ones are going to go first, and then they're going to funnel down. So if you're a programmer, languages will be your first one. Databases might be a second one. Web might be a third one. So and there's no that's unique to you. The order is going to be very, very specific to that.
Yep.
But as you start looking at the skills that you have, they're naturally going to kind of break out into those. But being able to chunk those out just makes it easier to digest, especially in that 6 seconds. We don't want 30 bullet points without any chunks because nobody's going to read them.
Nobody's going to read them.
At the first pass. After I know you're a good candidate, now I'm going to take some time to do that. But first pass, you're not going to do that.
Absolutely. Look at this. We agree on more things than you'd like to tell people.
Yeah, I know. That bothers
me. This is the part
really.
Where Scott is going to say you don't need this section at all. So.
No, actually, that's not. As long as internship usually is going to be the top one because it's most recent is first. And then if you had another, the thing that I don't agree with is, I had this one time. Half of the resume was experience. No, 80% of the resume was experience. Half of that was Taco Bell with like 10 bullet points.
Oh, yeah, that's a terrible idea.
Food service worker at Taco Bell with 10 bullet points. And then there was the bank, and there were 10 bullet points. And unbelievably, they worked with money at the bank.
Shocking.
And they
Who would have
served,
thought?
and they took orders and served food at Taco Bell.
I would have never guessed.
I know. That was a complete waste of time.
That is a waste of space.
Right.
Yes.
So, and it may be, and I've taken people that had multiple page, and then, because if the experience doesn't apply to what you're going for now, leave it out. It's like when you apply to Lakeland, you're going to have to go back to the paper route you had when you were in the 8th grade, and you're going to have to list everything. That's the point where HR is going to capture all that. We don't need to do it here. Now, you do need to kind of have that history.
Yes.
And
You
I
need to
have
have it documented.
And I have explained all the things that are on here. It's like a buffet. I have all these things in my experience that I can do, and I'm looking at what you specifically need, and I'm filling a plate up with those specific things. So my application, my resume for one job may have actual different experience here. Now, you tend to be complete history back to the 8th grade.
I recommend that people have all of their work history documented for their own.
Which you will need. When you get
Use.
to HR, they're going to ask you those things,
Yes.
so you're going to need to know it. But I don't think this is
And
appropriate.
filling out an application.
Right.
Now, on here,
How many years back?
the general rule of thumb is 10 years. That is general, depending on your work experience, what you're going into, blah, 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 blah,
So if
blah.
I'm a student and I've just done fast food and some odd jobs,
Now, here's the thing about that. And this is something that I've actually asked lots of employers because I'm interested in knowing the answer.
okay,
Many employers want to know that information, even on the resume, because the fact that you've worked indicates that you can work.
yeah.
And so it's one of those things where I don't want you to create gaps in your employment just because you only list 2 things out of your 5 experiences. And at the same time, I don't want to waste space.
Right.
That-
And my recommendation there is just to have one line for each of those.
And that's a possibility.
And then I can stack them, and I take up 6 lines for those 6 weird jobs that I had over that 6 or 5 year period.
That's a potential, right? Sometimes
It depends
that's
on your
true.
age, too. You know,
Yes.
if I'm 20 years old, I'm not going to have a huge employment history. If I'm 50, I'm going to have a much larger employment history. So it kind of depends on what we're dealing with. And again, if it matters, we're going to have more bullet points.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, I'll recommend no bullet points at all. Because if you're at Taco Bell in the bank, if I can guess what your bullet points are going to be by looking at your title, you don't need bullet points.
Well, and those aren't the bullet points you should be including anyway. You can write better bullet points than that. Trust me.
But if you weren't in a
That'll-
managerial position and you didn't handle budgets or scheduling, if you did, those are all good. Those are all universal. If you have done any of those translate from one job to the other, and they should be in there somewhere.
Yes.
But if you just were the monkey at the bottom of the ladder and you did whatever you were told, for me, name,
There's
title,
also-
date.
There's also the thing of in IT, the general recommendation is that you keep it to 1 page.
Yes.
And
I
in most
would have-
industries,
I would
that is
have a-
not.
Yeah.
That's not true.
I would have a 2-page or a 3-page. That's the buffet.
never a 3 for a
Well,
resume.
no, but I mean, I would have that,
Okay,
all
yes.
the detail.
Yes.
But when I turn one in, I'm always going to pick what's the most best serving I can get in 1 page.
But in general, 2 pages, up to 2 pages on a resume is fine.
You get 6 seconds on the first page. You get 2 seconds on the second page.
You're not getting anything on the second page
people
until
put
they screen you in.
right. People put really good stuff on the second page, and
Don't
it's a
do
total
that.
waste.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. If you wanted to have your 10-year history
Yes.
there that doesn't apply, great. Put it on the second page.
Yes, that's my point. But the most important stuff needs to be at the top of the first page.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And here's a good test, and this I would recommend to you. Get your resume done, hand it to someone who doesn't know you that well, and have them look at it, count to 5, rip it out of their hands. And then ask, what did you see? Because if they didn't see the important stuff in the first 5 seconds, you need to change your resume. Because it needs to be, here, take a look at this really quick. Mm-hmm. Yank. What did you see? And if they're bogged down in all kinds of fluff, because we've had people put their work history at the top
Yeah.
and their education and experience at the bottom, which is totally inverted.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's real estate and time are really important here, and you got to get to the good stuff as quickly and succinctly as possible.
And going back, because you just made me think of something, going back to like the format of this and how it's structured, I had a student about a year ago who argued with me about this structure. And so they sent me the one that they had already done, which was, I think, built on Canva. And it had, it was split down the middle, and it had things on this side and it had things on this side. And so to be like trying to be as objective as I can, I took it to some other professionals in the wing. And I said, I'm going to show you this. Give me your immediate thoughts. Here it is. And literally they were all like, I don't know where to look.
Yeah.
What am I supposed to read? And so, understanding how the reader takes in that information
Right.
is more important than you want to be fancy.
Or creative, or I
creative.
want to stand out. And it will help you stand out,
Just not necessarily for the right
but
reasons.
not in a good way. Right. And you don't want to be
Yeah.
the 2-column guy.
Yes.
Like, oh, we got 2-column guys coming in. Oh, is this we get to meet 2-column guy? You don't want to be that person.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that happens. I will tell you, many of the interviews that we've done, there's a nickname for people of whatever dumb thing that they did in their resume, because that's how we know them. We know them because of the embarrassing thing, misspelling guy, or Don't be that person.
We had a candidate for a position here who had a PhD once, and the cover letter was 5 pages long, which was completely inappropriate even for that level of a position. And at one point it said that he spearheaded conversations instead of spearheaded conversions. And that was probably 20 years ago, and I specifically remember that candidate because it was so, the writing in the cover letter was so atrocious that I read it just after he was screened out. I read it just to be like, how bad does this get? So those things absolutely happen. But okay,
Are we
I
done?
think we've made it through the whole thing.
Wow. We're just
We
over
need chapters in here.
I know, we're just over an hour.
Yep.
Yeah, we probably should put in chapter markers.
Yes.
So hopefully when you're watching this, you'll see there's chapter markers that you can
Yes.
skip around.
So you don't have to watch this all in one sitting.
This is the fight that Tina and Scott had about this. This is the fight that Tina and Scott had about this. That's all. Everything's just going to be one argument to the next, to the next, to the
Love
next.
it.
Yeah.
That's the best. Yep. So as I have finished out all the other videos, we are available to help.
She is.
Right. I am. When I say we, I guess I'm actually talking about Career Services
Yes.
is here to help students. So
They are.
reach out, ask, email us. You can set up appointments through Navigate. You can come by and talk to Janine. You can schedule. You can just send me your resume and tell me what questions you have.
And what
I
email
will.
address would that be?
That would be tmoore@lakelandcollege.edu.
MOORE.
RE.
Okay.
Yep.
Do you have like career services at Lakeland College?
We do, yes.
Does that come to you?
No.
Does that go to a black hole where no one reads it?
It goes to my administrative assistant,
Okay.
but it's better to just send it to me because otherwise she has to forward it to me and then it can just, get convoluted. So just send them to me,
Okay.
Timor. And I will answer your questions. I'll do critiques. I will proofread them. I will give you suggestions and I'll send it back to you. If you want to talk through something, make an appointment. You can make an appointment through Navigate. You can stop in and talk to Janine and make an appointment that way.
Where is your office?
Our offices are in the Luther Student Center in the same area as admissions and records and counseling services.
So if you just go up to the counseling desk, go to the big circular.
You can go to the big circular desk, and if
Okay.
nobody is there, there's 2 desks behind that against the wood wall, and either of those people can help.
Okay. Good. I was going to thank you, but I'm kind of your guest today, aren't I?
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks for having me. All right.
It was so nice to have you here today,
It
Scott.
was interesting. We haven't fought in a long time.
I know.
Yeah.
We need to turn on our podcast voices now because
Oh, well, we should have done that. Yes.
that's way too weird.
Maybe we'll talk again. All right.
Maybe.
Bye.
Bye.